25 years ago, Eric and I had the offices next to each other in a prior firm. And we found that both of us were thinking the same thing as to how clients should be treated, how the process should work, and trying to help people to start their lives over again. So, over a conversation, we decided to open our own firm. And, 25 years later, the rest is really history.
Yeah, it flew by pretty quick. But we were just two guys working, doing the daily grind, and thought we could put together a firm that operated a little better in the way that we wanted to work. And so we did, and we took the leap. It was tough in the beginning. You're only two guys. In the very beginning, Barry would answer the phone and pass it to me, and he'd play reception, and I'd be the lawyer. And then the next call, I'd be reception, and he'd be the lawyer. And so we just, when you start a business, you do everything. You're the file clerk, you're the receptionist, you're the lawyer, you're the paralegal, you're doing it all, and you're the IT guy. So
Yeah.
we had to do it all. But over the last 25 years, we've been able to grow it out and add a lot of really talented people to the team. And here we are 25 years later.
I think the biggest impetus for us is we wanted to have a firm that treated the clients with respect. They're in a lot of stress, a lot of turmoil, and being able to help them start over without being demeaning to them seemed very important to us.
I think one of the milestones that Borowitz and Clark has reached over the last 25 years is getting through the last 25 years. It's been a pretty tumultuous time in the bankruptcy business, with major changes having happened a couple of times since the firm opened in 1998. So that you have to quickly pivot and adapt rather to those changes. And then, it's also hiring good people, training them up, making sure the clients are treated the way that we want them to be treated, and the cases work out the way that we want them to work out. And it's been a fun ride, and there's been a lot of challenges in terms of changes in the law and things of that sort. But in terms of milestones, I think really getting through it all and being where we're at, especially over the last 3 years, getting through it with COVID. Not everybody made it through. Not every bankruptcy firm made it through the COVID years. And so that certainly should be up there with one of the milestones.
I think one of the keys for me is that when we started out, you're the new guy on the block. You don't get any respect from trustees and judges. They give you a really hard time about everything. And it took us some years, about 5 or 6, maybe even 10 years. And suddenly we weren't the new guy on the block anymore. We had prestige. The bankruptcy attorneys and the trustees and the judges have always told me we're the best there is. So going from the new guy to being what's considered one of the better law firms in the city, that was a big milestone for me.
I agree. Absolutely. I think that anybody who's been in the bankruptcy arena for the last 25 years has had to adapt with the changes in technology primarily, which have allowed us to handle uh, probably more cases in a more efficient manner. But in terms of the firm's practice and approach, I think that when we started out, and certainly when we worked at the prior firm, bankruptcy was more of a transactional process. And people would come in, they'd get their bankruptcy, they'd leave, and they'd move on with their lives, and we would never hear from them, and the firm never really did anything after that. Our firm as I think, is advanced into a more holistic approach to the bankruptcy process. And I think that one of the things that separates us from other firms is when clients come to us, we're not just looking about getting the bankruptcy done. I mean, that is obviously an integral part of sort of rebuilding their financial future, but the bankruptcy is only one step in that process. And so we're looking at immediately getting creditors off their back, so that we're taking on the responsibility of the calls and getting ordering the creditors not to contact clients anymore. If they do, we sue the creditors. I mean, that was something that we didn't do when we first started out. After the bankruptcy is over, we're pulling clients' credit reports and making sure creditors are reporting the bankruptcy and the debt correctly on the credit report, which then gives the client a better opportunity to rebuild their credit in a quicker manner. If they're misreporting it, we sue them again, and we force them to fix the credit report. And then the nice thing is the creditors end up paying our fees for doing that. So there's the process has elongated a little bit to incorporate more upfront prior to filing the case, and certainly more after the case is over, and counseling them how to rebuild their credit and get on with their lives. So that approach has changed over the last 25 years, I would say.
I would say the other thing is that I tell clients when we finish the bankruptcy, if you have questions about anything legal, call me in the future. And some of them need have financial issues down the line, but some of them they need a referral to a personal injury attorney, they need a referral to a real estate attorney. They just have a question about life sometimes, and they feel comfortable 5, 10, 15, 20 years later calling me and they'll say, "You helped me with my bankruptcy in 2004. Can I ask you a question?" And the answer is yes, I'll take all their phone calls. So I get a lot of clients who call years later and I'm still able to help them in some form.
And I think that goes to the holistic approach I was talking about, which is this isn't just about bankruptcy. We want to be sort of their first call when something were to go wrong, because we've also established a fairly comprehensive referral network of other attorneys handling other matters. So even if we're not a personal injury attorney, but something you were to get into a car accident, you're going to call us. Prior clients will call us. We'll talk about what that may mean on the financial front, but we'll also refer them out to somebody who can handle a potential personal injury lawsuit, or if they're laid off or terminated at work, or whatever the case may be. We establish a relationship with our clients where they can call us up, as Barry said, years down the road, and get them headed in the right direction.
I would say I don't have a particular case. What I would say is a lot of relationships, marriages, just relationships in general, end because of financial issues. The strain of owing debt and losing your home causes a lot of marriages to fail. And I can tell you over my 30 years of doing this that clients come in, they're all stressed, they're talking about separating. I do the bankruptcy, wipe out the debt, and they stay together and things are better. I probably saved more marriages than marriage counselors have. I've saved homes. People come in, they're losing their home, they're in foreclosure. This is something they've owned for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And through Chapter 13, we're able to save their home and get rid of their debt and reorganize. And I think these are the things that make me feel good every week.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine that the amount of phone calls that we take in a given week, and the number of people that we talk to, all who have stories of some unexpected event that happened in their lives, has really taken them on a bad road, a bad path. And so, one of the great things about being a bankruptcy attorney is that you really get to pick that person up and hug them, and get them fixed up and set them forward. So I too don't have a particular cases. There's just a whole lot of cases that where we have turned people's lives around. We get referred a lot of clients, and when I talk to people who are referred by their friend or their cousin or their coworker, I always ask about that person, and invariably they're doing great. They're really happy they went through this process, and it really turned their lives around. So that's why we do it. I mean, there's been a lot of impactful cases, but we did take the lead. Our firm took the lead a while back on addressing mortgage servicers charging excessive fees in bankruptcy cases. And it's something that our firm fought basically out on our own. I mean, we had judges asking us what we were doing at the time, and really being somewhat suspect of the approach we were taking. But we ended up winning. The mortgage servicers appealed the case to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the Bankruptcy Appellate Panel. We won in both of those courts. And ultimately, the national bankruptcy rules were changed to force mortgage lenders to have to disclose additional fees that they were charging to people in bankruptcy uh, in the court case itself. And if they didn't, they weren't allowed to charge those. Prior to that, the fees were all done in secret, and people would get out of bankruptcy, a bankruptcy type case, specifically Chapter 13, and they would still owe thousands of dollars in fees that nobody knew had been tacked onto their loans during the course of a Chapter 13 case. So we fought that here in the Central District. We won on appeal twice, and ultimately the national rules in bankruptcy were changed to force lenders to disclose those things as they were charging them. If they didn't disclose them, they weren't out there. So that was a big case, got a lot of national recognition, and felt really good to fight for our clients. When COVID hit in March of 2020, we had half a dozen offices throughout Southern California. Barry and I were driving all around each one of those offices and meeting with clients every week. And obviously, the pandemic and the shutdown changed everything for everybody. And so, for our firm in particular, within 48 hours, we had to shut the offices down, sent everybody home with their computers, and basically turned our firm from being an in office central location to a 100% virtual law firm. And as COVID continued and the shutdown continued, we made the decision to maintain that footprint. So we ended up closing almost all of our offices. And even today, we work as a 100% virtual law firm. And the nice thing about bankruptcy, and if we can say the silver lining in COVID as it relates to bankruptcy, is that the entire process is now virtual, including the hearings that you have with court are virtual, and all of the meetings with my staff and with us, the attorneys as well, is virtual. So literally, a person can now go through the entire bankruptcy process from the comfort of their living room, and that's been the big change and adjustment that Borowitz and Clark has made through COVID. And I think we've enjoyed the fact that we don't have to sit in as much traffic as we did pre-pandemic.
Well, one thing I will say is I have a lot of clients who say, I really want to get into a house, but I owe 30, 40, $50,000 in credit card debt. And my debt to income ratio is too high for me to get a home loan. So we go through the bankruptcy. When the bankruptcy is over, we tell them how to rebuild their credit. And it takes about 18 to 24 months. But a lot of times, a lot of my clients post bankruptcy get into homes that they never thought they'd get into. And I think that's the thing I'm most proud of, is that a lot of them really get their life together post bankruptcy.
Yes, and one of the misconceptions that people have, in fact, I spoke with somebody earlier today who told me that she wanted to be able to buy a car, be able to buy a house. And one of the misconceptions that people have is that if you file bankruptcy, you can't do those things. And that's just simply not true. We can literally get somebody into a new car the day after you file a bankruptcy case. So those doors are wide open to people who are filing bankruptcy. Buying homes takes a couple of years down the road. Obviously, here in Southern California, a 20% down payment is a significant amount of money. And so it takes some time to accumulate that as well. But rebuilding the credit usually takes a year and a half to 2 years. And once you do that, the effects of the bankruptcy are really are pretty minor. And as far as the success stories, I mean, we have clients that have started businesses after they filed bankruptcy. Again, clients that are referred to us tell us the stories about their friends and their family and their neighbors and coworkers that are all doing quite well after their bankruptcy is over. So we don't get everybody calling us up, 6 months later, just telling us how great their life is now. But we do hear anecdotally stories through people that they've referred to our firm.
I would say one of the big differences, before I did bankruptcy law, I was a litigator, and your own client hates you because you're charging them a lot of money. Opposing counsel hates you. Opposing the defendant hates you. But when I started to do bankruptcy, I get hugs from my clients. I get letters. I get thank you notes. I get Christmas gifts. So it's just a different relationship with your client than it is when you're in a litigation or an appellate or a family law kind of situation. It's just not the same relationship.
Absolutely. And I think clients can tell that we really do care about getting their lives turned around. It's not just a job for us. Both Barry and I feel very passionately about what we do. Bankruptcy lawyers in general could have pursued lots of different avenues of law, and the good ones are really passionate about helping people.
Interesting, when I talk to clients, when we were in person or on the phone, a lot of them will say, you talk differently than most lawyers. These other lawyers are just mean and rude to me. And I'm like, you don't want to get into a stressful situation like a bankruptcy without somebody who's on your side and somebody who cares about you. And I think that's the difference between what Erik and I bring to the table than a lot of other law firms.
Barry and I both taught at Loyola Law School for 9 years, and we began their consumer bankruptcy clinic. And we did that purposefully to train new lawyers in the area of bankruptcy law. It's not an area that's really sexy in law school. And so we found that a lot of new lawyers didn't really know anything about the area of law. So we started the bankruptcy clinic at Loyola Law School, taught there for 9 years, and trained a good number of attorneys, and several of which we run into in the halls in bankruptcy court these days. So that's one of the ways that we've contributed. But I would say probably the most influential way that we've contributed to the community is the lobbying that we have done at the state legislature here in California to change the bankruptcy laws. So, one of the things that we're able to do is protect assets of people that we file bankruptcy for through things called exemptions. And exemptions vary from state to state. And the state legislature is the one that determines what those exemptions are going to be, what we can protect for our clients. And so we, a number of occasions, lobbied as part of a very small group of attorneys here in California, uh, lobbied the state legislature to change those exemptions in favor of people who were going through the bankruptcy process. So, for example, prior to the change, the most recent change in the law, you were able to protect in the neighborhood of $100,000 worth of equity in your house. Now in Los Angeles County, that number is $678,000 worth of equity protecting their home. So somebody who's lived in their home for 20 years and has seen their property values go up is still able to protect their house and get rid of their debt through bankruptcy. So, and there were a number of other changes that we've done, but we've done that multiple times, lobbied Congress as well in Washington to change bankruptcy laws. So that's probably the one that's had the biggest impact on Californians in general. Borowitz Clark is the first consumer bankruptcy law firm to join the Law Firm Anti-Racism Alliance, which was started during the pandemic to really start to analyze and address institutional racism throughout the court system and throughout society. And so we felt that we could bring a voice about what happens in the bankruptcy context to that discussion, and have done so. So those are some of the things that we've done to benefit the community that do not directly relate to our clients in the sense that it's not impacting their life as they know it, but it benefits them going through the process.
So I think one of the biggest issues right now is that as bankruptcy attorneys, we're always doing battle with the courts and the trustees. The trustees are always trying to push the line, making it harder for debtors. And Borowitz and Clark is always trying to push back to make it better for debtors. And we are in a period of time right now where trustees are trying a lot of things that they didn't used to try to take the assets of the debtor. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is that we have to keep pushing back on what the judges and trustees are trying to do to the bankruptcy system in general. And I wish we could get more attorneys on board in making those fights, but right now a lot of it is done by our firm.
Yeah, and the creditors are also on doing that same thing. I mean, the bankruptcy laws are. There was a huge revamp of the bankruptcy law back in 2005, and here we are 18 years later, and there's still a lot of litigation going on about how to interpret those changes and implement those changes. And so, as Barry said, we continue to fight the good fight on that. I get the sense that the creditors and trustees are getting even more vigilant in their fight to try and chip away at some of the things that protect debtors in bankruptcy. And the ways that we address it is continuing to lobby both locally and nationally for additional legislation to counteract that. Barry, we taught quite a few of them at Loyola Law School. How would you respond to that?
So there's sort of two steps there. I don't think you should go to law school unless you want to be an attorney, right? And that's just to start with. But once you graduate, you should try and do a kind of law that interests you, that you're passionate about, that makes it okay or easy to go to work every day. Attorneys notoriously don't like their jobs. But again, as bankruptcy attorneys, we're helping people, our clients like us. It's much more of a pleasing job than it would be if I was, say, doing litigation or doing other things. So that's what I would say, is make sure you're getting involved in something for the right reason, that you're going to law school for the right reason, and that you're doing the kind of law you want to do, that you could see yourself doing for 10 or 15 or 25 or 35 years, because that's how long your career is going to be.
And we have taught a whole lot of seminars on bankruptcy to not aspiring attorneys, but actual attorneys. And of course, our time at Loyola Law School. And one of the things that we stressed time and time again is that as attorneys, you cannot cross any ethical lines. It is the first way to really destroy your career, and at the worst, and your reputation at the least. So one of the things that happens in bankruptcy laws is that you talk to a lot of people who have really compelling, sad stories about how they got into the situation that they're in. That could be the loss or serious illness of a loved one, divorce, loss of a job, tragic accident, all kinds of really just sad stories. And it's hard to not hear those stories and feel great sympathy for those clients. But at the same time, as an attorney, you are bound by the ethics of your profession and the bankruptcy code in the bankruptcy arena. And so there are times when you're asked by these people to do things, and they just don't know that what they're asking is not appropriate. But you're asked to do things that would violate those ethical guidelines. And so one of the things that we tell clients all the time, or rather attorneys and students all the time, is do not give in to the request of those clients. You have to really stand up for the ethical standards that you have as an attorney. And throughout your career, that will only reward you. But one transgression can really destroy your reputation and possibly your entire career. So that's something that we hit on that over and over and over again when we were teaching at Loyola, and every seminar we give to new attorneys about bankruptcy. We talk to them all the time about do not cross the ethical barriers that you may be asked to, or your heart may tell you that you should and might be able to get away with, but it's just not worth it.
I think the biggest thing is to seek out help before you're too far down the hole. When you start to see things going tough, seek out help, whether it's an accountant, a bankruptcy lawyer, somebody who knows finances. Because a lot of times people are really good plumbers or really good carpenters, but they're not good with running the business. And so you need to seek out someone who can show you exactly how the money coming in and where it goes and what the profit margin is and what you have to do in terms of total billables or how you have to cut your budget to stay alive. A lot of times, you know, business people come in and they really want me to help them keep their business open, and we are able to accomplish that. And sometimes they come in and they've waited so long and they're in such a deep hole that we can't accomplish that. So I would say to business owners, seek help sooner rather than later.
Great advice. I would also suggest strongly to people that you do not pursue the Google legal research that is out there. One of the misconceptions that people have about bankruptcy is that it's uniform across the country. And so Barry and I both take calls daily from clients who believe that they have already done all of the research necessary on their case and they've got it all figured out. And the problem is that bankruptcy law, while it's supposed to be a universal federal law, it actually has great local distinctions. State to state differ widely in terms of how bankruptcy law is practiced. And even here in the Central District of California, that comprises 5 separate individual divisions, each division handles certain things differently. And so reading on a website out of Michigan, a bunch of bankruptcy information is likely completely irrelevant as it relates to the case that you would have here in Southern California. And so we whenever somebody says, well, I've done my research and I already know what's going to happen, it's sort of one of those things where I'm shaking my head already because I'm wondering what website they read. And, not only is the information on a website out of state or maybe even locally not applicable, but sometimes it's just flat out wrong. And so it may have been superseded by case law that is developed and nobody went and updated the website. There's all kinds of reasons why there's inaccurate information out there. But the main suggestion I have for clients that are thinking about bankruptcy or even just facing financial difficulty, seek out a board certified bankruptcy specialist. Almost all of us will give a free consultation. You can call us up, schedule an appointment for free, and talk about your situation specifically and get answers that relate to your situation uh, and are applicable here in the Central District of California.
I speak to consults every week who have done their Google research, think they absolutely qualify, and they don't. They absolutely can't file a bankruptcy. They'll lose their home, they'll lose their business. And they're very happy with me and ecstatic when I explain why, this might not be their option, rather than having filed a bankruptcy and losing their home or their business. So you do want to talk to a board certified attorney, make sure you know what you're doing, and that you're in good hands before you file a case.
Yeah, I would say, Barry, maybe see if if you disagree with this, but I would say probably half the people I talk to every week, bankruptcy is not the way for them to go.
Yeah, I was going to say 40%. Yeah, 40 to 50% of the people, they don't need a bankruptcy. Maybe they don't own enough debt. Maybe they have the wrong kind of debt. Maybe there's other options for them, or they have too many assets, or there's other things we can do. And so, yes, I agree. About half the people who call in uh, shouldn't file a bankruptcy. And those are the people that are very grateful that they got the free consult and they don't have to file a bankruptcy.
And the best thing about what Barry and I do is we usually are able to point them in the direction that they should be going, whether it be an attorney to handle something else, a probate matter, or what. I mean, there's just sometimes this stuff gets pretty confusing, and they don't know where to turn. And so when we talk to them, our goal, like we've been saying, is to really head them in the right direction. And if that's through bankruptcy, terrific. We'll handle it. We'll get them set in the right direction, and we'll get everything cleaned up. But if it's not bankruptcy, we're going to tell them that that's not a good option, and we're going to set them in the right direction as well. The real goal here is to put them on the right track to a successful conclusion to whatever their problem is, and that's what I focus on.
I'd say the other thing is that when I do a consultation and an analysis, I do the whole analysis. I don't assume anything. And sometimes people are like, well, why do you need all these answers? Like, I have to determine what I can do for you. And so I get the idea from talking to a lot of people that other attorneys don't do that. They get them on the phone 30 seconds later, they've quoted them a price, and they haven't actually asked any questions to see what's best for the client. And so our
Yeah,
consultation can last 10, 15 minutes, a half an hour if necessary to figure out what your situation is and make sure we're offering the right service.
yeah. I mean, both you and I have done free consultations that have lasted an hour, on really complicated cases. And again, there's no time limit put on it. It's just however long it takes to correctly analyze what's going on. And sometimes that takes longer than others. But the notion out there that bankruptcy is sort of an easy process, and you come in, you get in, you get out, is sort of floating out there in the ether. And part of that is derived from the Google legal research that we've been talking about. But the truth is that bankruptcy is a complicated process, and if handled correctly, it can appear easy to the clients. And what I tell clients all the time is, for my clients, it appears to be a relatively easy process because we have cleaned up a lot of the issues in the case, sometimes with them not even realizing that we're doing it. But by the time their case hits the courthouse door, it looks like a really easy process. And so, when they go to a hearing and they see a trustee berating some other client in a hearing, and then they wonder why our hearing only lasted 2 minutes. They then start to realize the work that we've done before that case to make it a smooth process for them. That's some of the value that they're getting here at Borowitz Clark. One of the things I'm most proud about our firm is that almost all of our staff have been here for 15 plus years. It's rare, what we know about bankruptcy firms is that they tend to have high turnover and burnout. And so one of the things that I'm really proud of what we've been able to do over the last 25 years is retain good talent. And so we've got a great team of people who have been with us for a lot of years, and with that comes the body of knowledge that they all possess. So that's one of the things that, as an employer, I've been really proud of, that we've been able to retain really good talent for a long time.
The other thing I'd say about Borowitz Clark is that we get a significant portion of our clients from referrals. So we know we're doing well and that we're treating you right when you're sending us your mother or your brother or your cousin or the person who sits next to you at work. Bankruptcy firms are notorious for not getting a lot of referrals, and we get a significant number because we're taking care of people years later. I mean, I just did someone whose grandmother's bankruptcy I did 20 years ago. So she called me up to say, "Are you still in business?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'd like you to do my granddaughter's bankruptcy."
Yeah, it's one of those things that not everybody's sitting around the dinner table or hanging around at the bar saying, "Let me tell you how good my bankruptcy lawyer was." So it's not a business that lends itself well to referrals, but we do get quite a number of them. And the other thing that has made me proud, or makes me proud, I should say, is when I read the reviews of our firm. Obviously, when you deal with a large number of people, not everybody is thrilled about every aspect of it. And occasionally somebody gets frustrated and will post a review that's not that flattering. And then as you and I know, Baron, we sort of get with that person and try and figure out what happened, and either improve the processes, and certainly improve their situation. But the vast majority, in fact, the overwhelming majority of our reviews online are extremely positive, and just the sheer number of reviews that our clients have left us, sort of gives us some satisfaction that we're doing things well, and that clients are appreciative of the way. And then also when we talk with clients after a Chapter 13, for example, which is usually 3 to 5 years after the case has been filed, their case is finishing up. We have a meeting with every single one of our clients as their case is finishing up, and we invariably get very positive feedback on how the process was, and how the time we really were able to help the time fly here, um, and get their case to a successful conclusion. So it's nice to get that feedback from clients, both through the written reviews and also the direct phone calls and conversations we have with them.